this is not going to happen. Only because we don't have the technology to do it. We don't have a wireless camera and stuff like that to be able to do stuff like that, unfortunately. Otherwise, we would happily show you the two of us roaming around the kitchen, singing songs at the top of our lungs, making a turkey dance, and the sheer amount of heart-stopping bacon that we will be using in this year's Thanksgiving feast.
I don't sing.
He says he doesn't, but he lies. No, Eraser, no $6 million turkey. Sorry.
It's only about $3 million this year.
Yeah, and that's just the bacon. That's not the rest of the bird.
Bacon.
Yeah, for those of you who don't know us, we are huge bacon fans, and bacon is in everything.
Oh, yeah, it's in everything. And we pretty much make everything from scratch. But we're not here to talk about food today, are we?
I don't know. I guess we could talk about how long it takes a player to be digested by a black ooze.
That depends on the level of the player and the size of the ooze.
I thought it was a standard, like, XD4 rounds.
No.
No. You stay. No. Okay, that's creepy and weird. Okay. Should we get to the questions?
I'm waiting for you.
Okay. Let's start with just a few that I already have. From Starman, who wants to know, will the penis map be shown tonight?
All right, for those of you who don't know, this last weekend during a game, Mr. Starman purchased a custom map from me using his experience points that he got in chat. And we chatted about exactly what he was going to have for his map. And in the long run, he said, I don't care, make it funny. So I put it to my Discord chat, what should it be? And of course, they said it needed to be a penis of some kind. So I searched and searched and searched and searched for a great silhouette of a penis or a penis-shaped house. Which, by the way, there is a penis-shaped house in, like, the Netherlands. So I found one, and I have begun making him a wizard's house that is in a very unusual location. I got looking at this map, and I realized that if I show this on stream, or if I draw this on stream, it could get me banned, because there is no way in hell you cannot tell that it is a penis. So therefore, since you cannot show body parts of certain kinds on stream, I don't want to be banned. So therefore, I will not be putting the penis map on stream. However, if you would like to see the penis map and the updates to it, please join my Discord channel. If Eraser could please post the Discord channel invite to the chat, that'd be wonderful. Which, by the way, if anybody did not know, Mr. Eraser TX is my new mod for our channel, and I would like to thank him very, very much for being my mod. And yes, if you come over to Discord, you will get to see updates about every other day on what this map looks like. Typically, it doesn't take me very long to draw a map, but this one is particularly challenging as I'm trying to make sure that everything fits, well, tab A into slot B, I guess is the best way of putting it.
It doesn't help much that I keep suggesting that he use dick pics as the, hundreds of dick pics as the flooring. I think it'd be a good idea. Unfortunately, he doesn't.
Well, it's not so much I don't think that'd be a good idea. I'm just trying to figure out the logistics of me sitting around looking at hundreds and thousands of dick pics in order to make a floor. So therefore, I will leave it to my wife to find me all of those and send them to me.
You would still have to go through them for color coordination and crap like that. Sorry.
Thank God I am colorblind.
Okay. Mr. Minty wants to know what is the best way to make end class characters that are not natural, like Gnoll Warlocks.
What's the best way to make them? Well, if you utilize the DMG and the monster manual together, they have sets of stats in the back of them that have alternate humanoids. Those alternate humanoids have all of their abilities, their features, their traits already planned out for you, and you would just apply them just like you would be an elf or a halfling or a gnome. You would apply a gnoll, or you'd apply a goblin, or some other such thing.
Awesome. So there you go, folks. If you want to make, like Goblin Paladins and stuff like that, that's how you do it. Okay. And finally, from Eraser. What is the proper pronunciation of lich? Is it lich? Is it lick? Is it like?
It is... Oh my fucking god, it's an undead wizard! Actually, I've heard two different versions of it. I've heard lich, and I've heard like. People who say lich most often have English as their first language. People who say like are typically people who speak German as their first language.
Yeah. Personally, I like the holy shit, it's a big fucking undead wizard. That's just my preference. Okay. Now for more questions. How do blind sight and keen hearing work together?
Blind sight is the ability to move around almost like dark vision, except you are a blinded creature. And you can, quote unquote, see for a certain distance. Usually, blind sight will have a distance modifier to it of either 30 feet, 60 feet, 90 feet, or 120 feet. Sometimes they call this tremor sense in some games. Sometimes they call it blind sense, or phas sense is what they call it in GURPS. But you can see, quote unquote, by utilizing echolocation or a mystical sense that something is nearby. You cannot discern color, just like you can't in dark vision. You cannot discern words on a page, but you would be able to discern objects and movement and creatures and such. Utilizing that along with keen hearing, which gives you, for example, in 5th edition, it gives you advantage on perception checks that are based on hearing. Utilizing those two things together, you basically end up with, like, for example, a werebat, where you would be able to use echolocation and hear things from far away, and have that kind of blind sensed, that blind creature that's able to still move around and find things.
Okay. If a member of a Night Hag coven is in the ethereal plane, can the others use the shared spellcasting ability?
Okay, the shared spellcasting ability of a Night Hag in 5th edition requires that the Night Hags are within 30 feet of each other. And I would make the argument that when you're ethereal, you're actually on another plane of existence. It may be a step between plane where you're kind of half in, half out. But I would say that the Night Hag would not be there and would not be able to share spells.
I have to agree with that. I mean, I don't know. If they had some sort of like open communication thing, I don't know. I think I would allow it. But I mean, I don't know. Like a dim door or a portal or something like that.
Well, being ethereal just basically makes you a ghost. You're not physically there. You're kind of spiritually there, and you're seen as a ghostly figure and all the rest of those things. You're not really there. But I still don't think that the ability to transfer the energy that's required between the three of them to share their spells would be there. Now, if all three were ethereal, I would say that'd be fine. If all three were material, I would say that would be fine. And if, as long as they were within that 30 feet. But having one or two in one place and one or two in the other place, I don't see that as being able to complete that triumvirate to make the shared spells.
Okay. Legendary monsters. Can they ignore Diviner's portent and choose to pass the save anyway?
This is a fun one. I like this one. Okay, now the School of Divination, which is a wizard school that you can choose at second level, has one of its abilities at second level is called Portent, which before the game session begins or at the end of a long rest, you roll 2d20s, you record the numbers, and then you will apply those numbers to a attack roll, saving throw, or ability check made by yourself or a creature that you can see. Now, for example, if you rolled a 1 on one of those d20s, you're going to apply it as, we'll say, a saving throw to a creature. So instead of that creature rolling a saving throw, it would automatically have a 1 because that's what you rolled, that's what you're applying to it, that's what its roll would be. So, for example, if a creature had a +3 bonus to its wisdom save, you would give it a 1 for its die roll, and then it'd be +3, so it'd be a 4. So most likely it failed its saving throw. Well, legendary creatures, many of them, for example, a vampire, has the ability to say, as one of its legendary abilities, that I automatically succeed at this failed saving throw. I ignore the fact that it's a failed saving throw, therefore I succeed at it. So I would say yes, a legendary creature would be able to ignore the portent because it works in an order. The portent needs to be applied before a roll is made, therefore replacing what the roll would be. And then the legendary ability of the creature says that whatever the roll is, I can choose to instead pass it. So therefore, as a domino would fall, the legendary action would be the last portion of it. So therefore, it would cancel out the portent.
Okay. One of our new members, Urash54, wants to know how long you've been DMing and GMing.
I have been a game master since the mid-70s. I have been, let's see, I started game mastering in 1979, so I was about 5 years old. My first game was a very, very simple game. I ran a Gamma World game for my father, who was in the military at the time, and taught me that I need to start thinking forward when it came to house-by-house military events. But I've been running and playing since I was 5 years old. And as I said, that was 1979. I didn't get into a serious game until I was about 10 years old. And I was a player to begin with for, I don't know, about 6 months or so. And that was the mid-80s. And at that point, I got sick and tired of what we used to call D4 games, which is you play for a D4 game sessions that was arbitrarily rolled by whoever was running the game that week. And that's as much as you would play, no matter where you were in the plot line. You'd stop, make new characters, and go on and do something else. I got sick and tired of doing that. So I decided that I was going to write a game, like an adventure module. And I showed up to game session one week and said, you know what, guys, I want to run this week. Everybody looked at me like, okay, what do you got? And so I ran a game, and they loved it. and I went on from there, and I kept on running in more and more games. And then in the 90s, I think it was 90 or 91, I ran, oh, I think it was Ruins of Undermountain. It was the first time I ran it in early 90s. And that lasted for a year and change with my high school friends. I graduated high school, went on to college, found a huge group of gamers. I had something like 20 gamers that we'd all sit down at the same time. And that was the mid 90s. Then in the late 90s, I started designing games for Wizards of the Coast and Sword and Sorcery Studios, Goodman Games, etc., etc., etc. And I've been designing and running games in a more professional manner since then.
Okay, awesome. Now, this one's kind of off the cuff, and I see you do the. I actually see you do this a lot, and you do this constantly. And it's how do I convert the 3.5 edition monsters over to 5th edition? Is it an easy process? Is it a time-consuming process? What do I need to know?
Okay, let me take each one of those chunks a little bit at a time. Converting anything from one system to another system, and please view 3.5 and Pathfinder, since they're both basically the same system. View those two systems as a different system than 5th edition. Because they are. Their basic mechanics are different. But converting anything from one system into another system is relatively easy if you understand the foundations of both systems. If you know that, for example, in Rifts and 3rd edition and in Pathfinder and in 5th edition, it's all based on a d20 roll, and then it's just a modifier after that, then you already have the basis for being able to convert your creatures or your NPCs or your traps or what have you. If you're trying to convert something from, example, World of Darkness into 5th edition, then that's a little bit more of a difficult thing because now you're working more with DCs or target numbers, which, once again, you can look at and look in 5th edition and see, okay, well, the target number in World of Darkness or in D6 is considered to be an easy, a hard, a medium, or some other such thing, and then you're able to convert that same thing into 5th edition versus, in the DMG, they have different levels of difficulty. You can actually use those and extrapolate from each other. Now, that is the easy part, is figuring out how to do it. Sitting down and actually making each individual thing cross over so you're not losing something in translation, that's the difficult part. Sometimes you got to get kind of creative. I have done a fair number of them from World of Warcraft to 5th edition as an example of the fact that 5th edition is basically a video game. It has the same basic numbers. It has the same language involved with it. They all are basically the same, and all you have to do is just change it from an arbitrary, strange, I have bazillions of numbers in a computer system to boiling it down to a single D20. And I had a video months and months ago on how to transfer those things, which I will do again for you in the future. In the Campaign Critical series coming out in 2017, I will actually sit down for an hour as a YouTube video to show you how to convert creatures from one system to another, from one edition to another, and from video games into 5th edition. So that will be coming in 2017, and that is the best way I can explain it to you without actually showing it to you.
Okay, keep in mind, this is why we hear Geo, especially in our house, cursing a lot and threatening to what was the most recent one? Skip your monitor like a lawn dart or something of that nature. I don't remember. I think you were trying to convert something or some such form. I can't remember exactly. Okay, for our next question. The aura of menace from the Lantern Archons. For those of you who don't know what a Lantern Archon, it's kind of like a little glowy. Think of a will-o-wisp. It's a very tiny glowy ball, and it flies.
A Lantern Archon is the comic book code way of saying, I've got angels, and he's made of light. The specific question that Susie's trying to bring up here is the ones from Pathfinder. And their ability for their Gestalt ability and their aura of menace and everything, on whether or not multiple auras of menace would overlap and stack with each other.
Yep.
Yes. Yes is the simple way of saying it, because each individual aura of menace has its own DC. For Lantern Archons, by the way, it is a DC 16. And it's, I mean, each one of them is considered a source. It's kind of like having multiple people cast Fireball at you and you needing to roll multiple saving throws in order to avoid the damage of the Fireball. The Lantern Archons, as they group around you, will say they're forming their Gestalt, and they haven't gotten there yet. They haven't gotten together to do their Gestalt ability, which is basically combine into Super Lantern Archon. And they're surrounding you, and you have this big thing going on around you. Yes, you have multiple DC 16 aura of menace around you that you'd have to succeed on the saving throws. That's what makes them so freaking deadly.
Ooh, okay. This one's actually one of my favorite. Only because I know the history behind it and I actually freaking love it. Okay. The Curse of Vecna. Dun, dun, dun. How and why does it make some wizards into Nothics? What is the whole deal with that shit and shebang?
Okay, so you're talking about the actual description of a Nothic that is in the 5th edition Monster Manual?
No. We yes. And why are they Nothics? Why wouldn't they just remain your typical spellcasty woogie wizard?
This lore comes to you by way of 2nd edition Dungeons and Dragons in a little module that some of you may have played called Vecna Lives. There is a creature in the back of that module. Matter of fact, it is on page... I'll pull it up for you. I believe it's page 77 or 76. It's called The Eye. And what it is from 2nd edition D&D in Vecna Lives, the Eye was supposedly a unique creature that would happen when a wizard who worshipped Vecna attempted to pass on into becoming a lich. But Vecna interfered, and in turn, this wizard or cleric lost all of their emotional bonds and virtues and became this eye who had some psychic abilities and had its own agenda. But mostly it was just there so Vecna could see what was going on in the mortal realm, and they'd be used as assassins and spies, etc. In 5th edition, they've become a standard monster called the Nothic, but in 2nd edition, they were called the Eye. If you really would like to know the history of such a thing, then I would say pick up Vecna Lives, which is it goes by the trade name of TSR 9309, or it was Greyhawk. It was the World of Greyhawk Adventures number 4, I believe, and it's called Vecna Lives. And in there, it goes through a huge multiple paragraph and page description on how the eye came about, which then was brought forward into third edition, brought forward into fourth edition, and then brought forward into fifth edition as the Nothic.
Awesome. And for those of you who have never gone up against a Nothic, these are nasty little critters. Just straight up nasty little critters. We don't like them at all. Nothics, bad. Okay. Okay. This is another weird one, and I've actually seen this posted quite a bit. It's actually from the AD&D module Reverse Dungeon. What is a Yoki Virago?
Yoki Virago are a specialty type of yokel. And for those of you who know what a yokel is a shape-shifting handmaiden of Loth, the Drow Spider Queen. And these are her handmaidens, these are her enforcers, these are the things that are gifted to her priests, or I'm sorry, her priestesses, to administer pain. The Yoki Virago, which is, by the way, the plural, the Yoki Virago are a specialty version of these that not only can change into a drow form or their yokel form or a spider form, but they also have gaseous form. They also have additional spell powers. They have additional hit points. They have additional armor class. They are insane. So if you thought a yokel was bad, there is the Yoki Virago. There are two named in the Reverse Dungeon, which doesn't really have too much information about where they really come from, and that's Quav and Culé. They're twins, and they are supposedly the only Yoki Virago that Loth has at her disposal.
Great, great. Because yokels weren't bad enough. Let's just do some more and give them bad tempers. Awesome. All right, now we're going to move on. Blackmoor. What more is known about the star-faring civilizations that crashed upon Earth? And that's Earth with an O, people.
Yep, that's the Greyhawk Earth. Earth. That Gary Gygax so creatively called his world Earth. Well, the starfaring races that we're talking about here, or the starfaring peoples and civilizations we're talking about, is where the SS Beagle came from. SS Beagle is the spaceship that crashed into the face of Earth and created the demi-powers of Saint Stephen, who had the Temple of the Frog, and a number of other more powerful players. Believe it or not, they're actually player characters to begin with. But it was a way for Dave Arneson, who was the co-creator of Dungeons & Dragons, to bring his Star Frontiers game to Blackmoor and bring those players to Blackmoor along with robots and laser swords. And you got to remember, this is a time period when Star Wars just came out in the theaters, and so laser swords were a very important part of this mythology. After Dave and Gary went their separate ways, and Blackmoor became buried in Earth's past by 25,000 years, if I recall correctly. And the world flipped upside down, and the ruins of Blackmoor were just buried. Not much was known about what was going on with spacefaring races since then. However, if you look in the DA modules, there's 4 of them. I can't remember all of their names off the top of my head, but if you look at them, then you'll be able to find more information about the spacefaring races and what happened to them and where they came from and the cultures. If you go forward 30 years and you go into Dave Arneson's Blackmoor for 3.5 edition, which I was lucky enough to be able to work with Dave on, you will learn the full story of that. And bless you.
Sorry about that. Urash54 wants to know if we prefer wizards, warlocks, or sorcerers.
It depends. I prefer warlocks to be my edgelord. I prefer wizards to be wizards, and I prefer my sorcerers to be the glass cannon.
I kind of have to agree. I kind of have to agree with that because I mean,
I do not, however, like the Fey Warlock. I think that's retarded. I think the Chaos Sorcerer is kind of stupid. And there is a large number of the archetypes of Wizard that I find to be less than useful. So take each one with a grain of salt. In a fight, straight up fight between any one of them of the same level, I would not call any one of them a winner because they all have their special abilities.
This is very true. This is yeah. I would have to agree with that.
I do, however, find that the Warlock is the most difficult of the three of them to play. Because of the incantation abilities and all the rest of those. I have a Warlock in one of my parties in Blood of the Crown on Sundays, and he does a damn good job with it. Though he doesn't really utilize a lot of his abilities. Not yet, because he hasn't really found a reason to yet. But foreshadowing much there. We've had a sorcerer play in our Curse of Strahd game, and he was fantastic and a lot of fun to have around. And then we have had a wizard in my Return of the Wraithborn game on Fridays. So I've had all three types as players, and I've gotten to see right up front what each one of them is.
Okay. Our next one has to do with Orcus. For those of you who don't know who Orcus is, he's from a module. He is actually from, hold on, I'm looking it up right now.
Orcus has been around since the beginning of D&D. But the one that she's specifically talking about here is Out of the Abyss.
Yes, thank you. Out of the Abyss. And they want to know, he has this boomy voice thing when you first walk into his lair. It's a lair ability. People want to know, the DC, it's a DC save 23, or I think it's like instant death or something like that. What would the save be? Would it be a constitution check? Would it be a dexterity check? What kind of check is this?
The specific ability is called Booming Voice, and what he's doing is he's casting Power Word Kill with a save DC of 23. Nowhere in the module and nowhere in the player's handbook does it actually give you a stat for what that save is going to be. That specifically is, if you look at, I believe it is Power Word Stun. Power Word Stun has it written into it that it is a Constitution save. I would say, yes, by all means, use this as a DC 23 Constitution save. And if anybody needs a spoiler alert for a game, or for a module that has been out for a year at this point, speed it up. Hurry it up. I'm kidding, Rob. I'm just joking. I'm just joking.
Okay, let's move on. Okay. One of our peoples wants to know exactly what an Illithid is. Is it, they've played Call of Cthulhu before. They're wondering if it's a lot like Cthulhu or a smaller version.
Okay, Illithids, or Mind Flayers, are absolutely not a little bit a lot like Cthulhu. Matter of fact, they are Cthulhu. Illithids have been kicking around since the idea of psionics became available in of Men and Magic, which is one of the 3 original white booklets that came in the original D&D game when it was still back in the chainmail days. And Illithids were there. They are Cthulhu-esque. It is based on Lovecraftian horror. They are meant to eat your brains. They have, for those of you who don't know what an illithid looks like, it is a squid-headed humanoid with 3 long fingers and a thumb, and they're kind of a purplish pinky color, and they worship a giant brain. And the tentacles that they have on their face, they have 4 tentacles, and they would reach in, they burrow into your skull, and they extract your brain, and they eat it, and then they would get all your memories and your abilities. That is what an illithid or a mind flayer is. And these creatures live in the Underdark. They're horrible, terrible, nasty, alien-minded creatures, and they are indeed 100% patterned after Cthulhu, a mortal version of Cthulhu.
Awesome. Another one of our listeners wants to know, they've been going through some of the old, later and earlier edition D&D books, and they came across Solars. They want to know how come Solars are so much more powerful than other outsiders, or seem to be so much more powerful than other outsiders.
That's kind of like asking why a hobgoblin is more difficult than a goblin. It's just because they have to fill niches. The Solar is the angelic version of a Balor, which is the demonic version. Balor, for those of you who know, they're based on, everything is Tolkien, basically, and it's supposed to be the Balrog. But they're called Balor because of copyright infringement. So just like halflings are called halflings and not hobbits, they were originally called hobbits back in the original series of D&D books. The Balor was originally called a Balrog back in the original series of D&D books. So, but the Solar is the good version of the Balor, and they needed to have something that would mirror themselves, or else you would have a disparity between heaven and hell as far as game mechanics went, and hell would take over.
Okay. All right. Here's another one. This one sounds kind of stupid, but I can understand why it was asked. What's the difference between an Ettin and an Otyugh?
Ettins are a 2-headed giant. Otyughs are garbage-dwelling cabbage balls of death.
But they both like to make their lairs in kind of the same place. So I kind of understand why they would be confused between Ettins and Otyughs.
I don't see how there could be any confusion between the two of them. An Otyugh is usually what you find at the bottom of a cesspit in a dungeon, because that's where everybody throws their garbage, and they eat it. Because they'll eat everything and anything, and they will reach up out of the pit with their big spiky paddle-like hands and tentacles, and they'll grab you and they'll pull you down and they'll eat you. Think of it kind of like the Sarlacc, but as a ball instead of a big long worm. And then you have Ettins, which are hill giants with 2 heads.
True.
And they like to argue with each other all the time.
This is very true. Ooh. Another one of my favorites. And all right. So Red Court. You probably know it as Mask of Red Death. How does the human become infected?
That's really digging it up for me. All right, for those of you who don't know, Mask of the Red Death was a domain of dread, quote-unquote, for Ravenloft back in 2nd edition. It was a Victorian-era horror, so it would be your Dr. Jekyll, Mr. Hyde type of horror. And the Red Court was a group of villains that would infect certain human beings to basically carry along a plague. And how do they get affected? Well, they fail a saving throw. That's honestly, it's a very mechanical thing on that one. It's they fail a saving throw, or it would be a part of the story and the plot device. Because in second edition, we didn't have things like transparency. So there would be times where a game master would turn and look at you, or write a note, pass it along to you, say, "Guess what? You're infected, dude, and there's nothing you can do about it."
Very, very, very true. Okay, going back to liches. Are there any lich type enemies for low level parties, like demi liches or something like that?
Or quasi liches, etc., etc.
Quasi liches, whatever you want to call them at this point.
I have to be honest with you. A lich can be of anything. I wrote a module for Blackmoor many years ago that had a druid lich in it, and the party level was only like 2nd to 4th level, and it was called the Redwood Scars, the name of the module for 3rd edition, and there was a druid lich that was in it, and it was only a 6th level druid, so it was considered to be a very, very good, challenge for those characters. But to be honest, you can apply any kind of an undead and lich-like template to any creature. You could end up with a goblin shaman who is an undead lich-like creature that just will not die. You can have something like that. You can create it yourself. It doesn't matter if you're a 1st level PC or a 20th level PC. Higher level types of characters and creatures can always be considered to be an enemy for lower level characters, because you could level your villains right alongside your players if you really wanted to. It just depends on how much work you're wishing to get into.
Awesome. And by the way, that freaking druid kicked our ass from one end of the realm to the other end of the realm numerous times.
Not my fault.
Was he the one I bitch slapped into the next plane?
No, this is the one that had the eyeball. Remember the crow that held the eyeball?
Yeah, ew, gross. Ew.
Yeah, that's that one.
You're an asshole, GM.
Yes, I am.
Okay, one of our happy little readers wants to know, what do we think of Fantasy Grounds 3.2? 3.2.
Well, it's just like any other program that you get, whether it's Roll20 or Fantasy Grounds or what's the other ones that are out there. Whenever they have updates, any type of software update, even for any video game, they're going to have new features. They're going to get rid of old features. They're going to modify things. They're going to change things as a wide variety of people have said, hey, I like this, I don't like that. And just like anything like that, you're going to have to get used to it. It's like having a new version of Windows. It's like, oh, look, I had everything set up on my desktop exactly right. Now it updated, and now I don't know where anything is. Well, it just takes time to get used to. Then you'll discover that the tools that are there are better than what you had before and will help things move along. So it's, how do I like it? I guess it's a personal preference kind of thing. I like it just fine. I don't really have too much of an issue with it, other than the copious amounts of drop-down menus for a game master to go through. Other than that, I really don't have any issue with it at all. Thank you, Eraser. Yeah, D20 Pro is the other one that I was thinking of.
Yep. Oh, good Lord. Oh boy. Okay. Are there any creatures similar to the Thing? I'm not sure what Thing they're talking about. I'm not sure if they're talking
Seriously?
about
Ben Grimm.
I'm not sure. It could be Ben Grimm, but it could also be, the 1920s, the Thing.
That was actually pretty good. That's not too bad. Okay. Well, all right, let's answer both of those then.
Mm-hmm.
All right. So we will start with the Ben Grimm Thing. Yes, you can use a sentient stone golem or earth elemental That could be The Thing, as a Ben Grimm kind of thing. And then you have the 1920s horror flick, The Thing. You could make that into a shambling mound, which is actually what the shambling mound comes from. Comes from The Thing.
Okay, this one I see a lot of people get confused on. What is the difference between a worm and a dragon?
WYRM and dragon.
Yes, WYRM.
Are you from England or are you from the U.S.? There's your difference. If you're from Europe or if you're from the U.S., that's basically your difference. There is no difference between the two of them. But
Okay.
wait, but I will put a little asterisk by that. Depending on the type of gamer you are, depending on what kind of experiences you've had, then worm would mean the family of dragons. So therefore, drakes, pseudo-dragons, wyverns, dragons, those kinds of things, those would be considered to be worms. Or you could go with the idea of flightless dragons, dragons that have absolutely no wings. And then dragon is a Western European name, so therefore it is what you would think of when you think of like a red dragon is a dragon. So.
Okay. Another one of our readers wants clarification on the Wraith and their life drain attack? What exactly does that do?
It takes away.
I believe that. I was gonna say, I think, doesn't that lower your constitution by like 1d6 a round or some crap like that?
Sure, people, make me look up the actual specific attack.
I'm good at this. This is why he wants me to pick the questions.
This is why I want you to pick the questions at least a few hours in advance so I have an opportunity to look them up. Yes, I do not have all this information right off the top of my head.
Good God, no. That would be cheating.
If I had the information at the top of my head, that'd be cheating?
It would be, because that would mean that, you would be able to remember. I would know that you would be able to remember crap, so you wouldn't be able to pull the whole, hey, when's your birthday? Or, is it our anniversary?
Seriously? I'm the one who remembers our anniversary.
I remember it. Mostly.
Alright, so the life drain ability. What exactly about it don't people seem to understand?
What does it do?
It drains your life. It deals damage to you and it drains your life. Life drain, quote unquote. Life drain just means I smacked you so hard with necrotic magic that it made you wither. I mean, is that what you're trying to go for, or do you want the idea that the Constitution saving throw drains some of it off and brings you to 0?
Okay, but here's another one. What happens when you hit Constitution 0? Are you dead? Or can you be brought back to 1 hit point?
If your hit point maximum is reduced to 0, then you're dead. You're dead.
There is no oh, poof, you have 1 hit point?
No. Matter of fact, if you're reduced to a maximum hit point value of 0, then you're made into a wraith. I'm sorry, a specter.
What about if it's your constitution that's brought to a 0, not your hit points?
If your constitution, alright. If your hit point maximum or your constitution, either way you want to go at it, or if you want to use vigor, or if you want to use, I don't know, whatever other systems out there, there's a whole bunches of other possible vitality systems. If it's brought to 0, that means you have no pool. It doesn't mean that, oh, I get 1 hit point back. You can't have +1 over 0. That doesn't happen. 0 being the maximum that you're allowed to have, that is all you can have. Is 0. 0 equal dead. 0 equal gone. 0 equal no more. 0 equal you're a shadow on the wall. and you're going to eat somebody's balls for lunch the next day because your Wraith Overlord has told you so.
Okay, so me on Tuesdays. That's all you had to say. Me on Tuesdays.
You on
It's all good.
Tuesdays.
Oh, okay. Okay. Ooh, ooh, ooh. Gray renders.
What about them?
Were they in any edition before 3.0?
Yes, they were in second edition. I do believe they were in. The Grey Render was in, I think it was Dark Sun's Monstrous Compendium, the big binder thing. They were in there, and since that point, Grey Renders have basically kind of disappeared. They're around still. You still find them in 4th edition, and I do believe they have them in 5th edition now. But what's the sense of having them? They're really nothing useful.
Hey, I kind of like gray renders. They're kind of cool, or they were kind of cool.
How was anything cool about them? They were just these big giant hit point magnets. They were just big soaks that you sat there and you beat on all day long because they have a crap armor class and hit points that fell out their freaking ear holes. They hit you if they could reach you, and then you would be a small smear between their big giant toes. But otherwise, they were retarded.
But they were cool. I'm a gray renderer whore. I'm sorry.
I love the Sahagwin. The Sahagwins are awesome.
Okay, explain to us exactly what a Sahagwin is. Because there's some of us out here who don't know what a Sahagwin is.
Sahagwin are evil fish people. They're actually devil fish people. They come from hell. They come from the seas of hell. They are what happened when merfolk go evil and they die. Their souls are raised as Sahagwin. That's the original story of them from 1st edition. They are awesome. I love Sahagwin.
So what's the difference between Sahagwin and Kuatoa?
Kuatoa is a naturally occurring creature. It's a race that lives underwater, where a Sahagwin is not supposed to be a race. They are now, as of 3rd edition and shit, they are considered to be a race unto themselves. But
yes, they are.
But the original basis for them, there is 2 incredibly different biases. The Kuatoa are supposedly neutral. They're not like a merfolk kind of thing or an aquatic elf. They're neutral, where the Sahagwin are the bad guys.
Okay. Yuan-ti. What is the relationship between Yuan-tis and Nagas? Really?
Actually, no. This is actually a viable question. Naga comes from Indian Hindu religion, and the Naga, or the snake gods of the rivers. And the Yuan-ti is actually Chinese in origin, which has basically about the same thing. And the Yuan-ti is actually like the Yellow River, also known as the Yangtze River. They are a race of spirits that would live along the Yangtze, and they were evil snake people that were guardians, etc., that would battle human beings over sacred locations. That is their basis for the 2 of them. That is their mythological, true basis in any sort of modern day religion. And Naga, as far as D&D go, are considered to be guardians still. Even like Bone Naga, they're considered to be evil guardians. They're undead guardians, but they're still guardians. Where the Yuan-ti are a force of evil that threatens the world from hidden jungle temples and the swamps, and they are the lords of snakes.
Okay, there you go, folks. Okay, one more quick question. Okay, racial hit die. How do they affect the feat apprentice? Do they affect the feat apprentice?
What game system are we talking here?
3.5.
Okay, now I really have to go back in time on this one.
Okay, let me read it all to you. Once the apprentice reaches 5th level, he graduates from his apprenticeship. He continues to gain the benefits of the apprentice feat, but no longer needs to work for his master. The mentor's associated skills remain class skills for the purposes of determining the maximum rank he can have in those skills. He still retains the secondary benefits, but an associated skill can only be purchased as a class skill. If he gains a level in a class that has that skill as a class skill, he no longer needs to tithe to his mentor upon gaining levels. Does a creature with 5 or more racial hit dice graduate automatically upon entering play?
No. Because what they're going after here is they're going after level versus hit dice. Just because you're a Minotaur who is a wizard and an apprentice to another wizard doesn't mean that when you walk to the wizard's tower and you get your pointy hat that you automatically can cast Fireball. You still are a first level wizard. You can barely cast Detect Magic and Magic Missile, let alone a Fireball. So what they're looking for here is they're looking for your actual wizard level, which they're utilizing as a rank. Saying that you've gotten XYZ far into your training versus what hit points are.
Okay.
Yeah, that feat sounds like some sort of happy homebrew horseshit is what that sounds like. Because I don't think I have ever run across the apprentice feat that actually sounds like a probably from the Complete Arcane. And it is probably not so much a feat as it is as a training ability, as a story pusher. Which, once again, this is why 5th edition doesn't have nearly as many feats as 3rd edition or Pathfinder does.
True, true. Very, very true. Very, very true.
Yes, you would definitely get 3 separate pointy hats if you were a Minotaur.
Woot woot. I like.
Alright, so before we end, I just want to let everybody know next Thursday is Thanksgiving in the United States. Susie and I will be suffering from food comas, most likely at that point, so we will not be having our Game Masters 911 next week. However, we will be returning on Friday next week with our regularly scheduled Return of the Wraithborn game session. Tomorrow we are playing Return of the Wraithborn, and the players are currently stuck in a river with the rogue has his hand stuck in a door and is about ready to have an encounter of some kind. In Curse of the Strahd on Saturdays, I have no fucking idea where the hell we are. I'm a player in that one. I have no idea. I know we just got a silver dragon skull. People have been asking me, so how close are you to being done? I have no freaking idea. I haven't read the module. As a player, I try to stay away from reading any of the modules. That way I don't know what's coming up. And then on Sunday, the players are about ready to go hop, skip, and jump across a big pool of possibly contaminated water with monsters. So we will see what's going on with them.
Oh, good lord. Contaminated pools with monsters.
There is no sickness. There is no sickness induced by my turkey. My turkey is awesome.
It is awesome. I'm sorry. Eraser, you just don't know what you're missing.
So.
It's bacon turkey.
All right, ladies and gentlemen. Well, I would like to thank everybody for coming along on our hour-long journey this evening. And I would like to please invite everybody to come and join us tomorrow night at 8 p.m. Eastern U.S. time for Return of the Wraithborn. And until then, for myself and for Susie Q, my wife, I would like to say everybody have a good weekend and a happy holiday if we don't see you before then.
Yep. Happy Thanksgiving, guys. We'll see you all in 2 weeks. Bye-bye.